I'm not going to force you to stay to the bitter end, although you'll miss the famous quiz. No quiz. We will be ending conveniently on Broadway. You have access to public transportation. You can walk up to the A train if you want to. 168 to Broadway. Or take the shuttle buses or walking or have an early dinner or late lunch somewhere in the neighborhood. There'll be some similar offers. Anyway, so raise your hands. This is your first James Walk. How many first-time James Walk people? Well, you know, James Jacobs was a wonderful urban activist and a community leader who was from Scranton, Pennsylvania, who ended up living on Hudson Street in the West Village. She was born in 1916, and she lived until 2006. So she was basically initially a self-trained urbanist. She wrote a book called The Death and Life of Great American Cities, which was dismissed as poppycock in the public. But for years now, it's probably the number one assignment for anyone studying urban planning, either at the undergraduate or the graduate level. She believed in density. She believed in cities at a time when the suburbs are being developed and car culture, was exploding all over the place, the highways. And so she believed in the vibrancy of cities. She really loved the fact on her street in Hudson Street, she got to know her neighbors, shopkeepers, street life, village. And so the spirit of the James Walks is to celebrate our neighborhoods and our great city of New York. And of course, the Municipal Art Society, which has been around for 125 years, is the sponsoring organization for James Walks, which I am a proud member. And members of Municipal Art Society here, it's great. It's a great organization to support. Not only do they have wonderful educational and cultural events, but they're very involved in preserving our city and neighborhood, because I'm sure you've noticed we're getting a bit overdeveloped in places. So anyway, they have this one on their website. They have this wonderful project called the Accidental Skyline. Anyone, I don't know about you, but my office is on 57th Street, staring at the tallest building on the continent that's being built, right next to the Art Students League. Unfortunately, the Art Students League is a landmark. It's not going anywhere. And Carnegie Hall, of course.
Is that what they're building there?
Without further ado. Oh. Housekeeping. Do be careful walking the street. Do not read your handouts when we're crossing the street. Although it would be nice to have a smaller group, but I don't want it to happen because you get your plan. So be careful. Do take photos and post them on the website. We love that. As an art society, we appreciate that. We will have a restroom stop. There is an area not too far from here where we can also get spectacular views of the Hudson River. It's a one-of-a-kind place called Riverbank State Park, where we're going to be headed in just a few minutes. So there are two large restroom facilities in the same area. Sound good? Yeah. So we're a very large group. It's probably going to take way longer than I had planned. I actually had instructed. I was supposed to cap this off at 30 because this is not just a walk. This is a guided experience. I'm going to be talking a lot. I might have to cut my talking short so we can finish the walk before midnight. But anyway, thank you for coming for Okay, so we begin in Montessori Square, Montessori Park, which is named after an amazing guy. He was born in 1784. He was a Jewish fellow from Italy. Became Sir Moses Montefiore. He actually was knighted by the Queen of England. He actually for a time was the Sheriff of London. He married into the Rothschild clan. And,
Excuse me.
Pretty wealthy. He started a gas company, and his company lit the first gas company first in England. Just like homes with gas lights. And then he became a philanthropist and a supporter of Jewish causes, combating and preventing anti-Semitism. There's a big hospital in the Bronx you may have heard of, named after Moses Montefiore. The street behind us is called Powder Place, just south of Broadway. And Hamilton Place, Diagonal Street, is the last remnant of the original route of Broadway. Broadway originally was called the Bloomingdale Road. started back in the 1700s, all the way downtown. Because as you know, New York started out as an obscure Dutch trading post in the 1620s called New Amsterdam. The British eventually took over. For years, we had an American Revolution. But the Dutch actually came up this way in the 1650s and established farming communities, not so much here, but down in the valley, the Harlem Plain. And they called the area New Harlem, after Harlem and Holland. Who was here first? A branch of the Delaware Lenape Indian tribes who had settlements. Some, they were kind of nomadic. They hunted and fished. They grew corn, squash, and beans. And of course, they were here before the Europeans. They had a name for this hilly island. They called it Manhattan. That's why it was called Manhattan. Translated from the Algonquin language family, Manhattan means basically island of hills. So welcome to the island of hills. Now, by the way, this walk, there is some hilly terrain, especially in the beginning, and then it's going to be all level ground. So just do be careful. So what we're going to do first, we're going to be walking.
This is our place. We got it. And they're like, we go over here. And we're like, yeah.
You want to read it?
Hold on, please. Yeah, my background.
So basically, the purpose of the walk, by the way, which I didn't mention, what is the purpose? Well, not only to celebrate Jane Jacobs and her values, which she stood for, the vibrancy of cities and our neighborhoods, but this walk is an immersion in one of the most amazing urban neighborhoods maybe in the world. We're going to see a little bit of everything. The historic district with beautiful townhouses. We'll see the house, the only house that founding father Alexander Hamilton lived. We'll see an amazing state park overlooking the Hudson River. We'll see a community garden. We'll even, this might be difficult, and I have to do this in shifts, visit a secret art gallery, which has no sign. And then, of course, the spectacular campus of City College. This is a neighborhood. We'll see where people recreate, socialize, live, and honor culture and community. Sound good? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
This is where we went to that, is it? That's where we went to see the big school campus and not usually open. Well, that's here, right? Yeah. Giant. That looks like a castle. Yeah, we went in, and then like this is not usually open to the public, and we went in, and then we went into the thing on the roof.
Right.
Yeah, and then we went to, and then there was another weekend where and then there was another weekend we came to see the Alexander Hamilton House. And
Restrooms in the Riverbank State Park in about 20 minutes. I mentioned, this is actually New York City's first apartment house neighborhood. Why? The first subway line opened here in 1904. All these apartment buildings on this side of the street, further up, were all built because of the subway.
Can we split up here so she can get in here? Thank you. Make way, please, make way. We have no room.
I'm gonna try to get across the third row. Yeah.
So we started off on Broadway, which has a good old-fashioned New York City style brick. Then when you're in New York City, like
I know, it doesn't work.
Anyway, so in contrast, Broadway is one neighborhood, shopping, restaurants, and then the State Park is where a lot of people are, especially our young people and families, and people just having a picnic. See. So as I mentioned, these apartment buildings were completed all like in 1906 to 1907, built in anticipation of the subway opening in 1904. And by the way, the subways really saved our city. Saved us. Always success. While Manhattan has 1.7 million residents today, go back to 1910, Manhattan actually had more people, more dense, 2.1 million people. In part because of the immigrant families sharing tenement apartments in neighborhoods like the Lower East Side, where the tenements not that, of course. So similarly, the subways opened up the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, creating more opportunities for better quality housing. Crowded tenements, which are dark rooms, shared baths, and outhouses.
It's part of it. Try it before you are no. Try it. You don't know.
I've never been down the street. Haven't we walked across that bridge though? They go to a...
Jenny left to go to
And then we're ready to yeah, I'm just going to be walking.
Yeah. I got one person who was supposed to call me. Some of you like, I'm not exactly. I don't like it.
always did wear the sneakers the one that we had whenever those were those because I got the
Like, is this the entrance to the?
So yeah. Yes.
No, we've never been
Everybody
here.
hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
So welcome to Jenny's Garden. This was a rubble-strewn lot. Drug addicts would hang out here. So Jenny Benitez, who's been living here in the neighborhood, just right up here on Riverside Drive, for probably close to a half a century. She worked with volunteers. She worked to transform the space into a spectacular community garden. You know, the community gardening movement is one of New York's great stories. We have well over 700 gardens today in all 5 boroughs. And it's fairly recent in our history, considering our history goes back to the 1600s of the city, right? So the community gardening movement was started more or less around 1970 in the East Village by a woman named Liz Christie. Her garden is still there. It's on the corner of Bowery and Houston Street.
And they were all mothers. They were all mothers with young children who were in the neighborhood. The children had to play and that's why they ended up just cleaning up the space.
Right. What's unusual about this particular community garden, most community gardens are on vacant lots in between apartment buildings. This community garden is technically within Riverside Park. So Jenny and her neighbors really had to work with the city on allowing them to transform the space into this community garden. They also have the space behind us there, and then the space over here. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk up, and then we're going to walk into Riverbank State Park. We'll see a lot of activity going on, which Jane Jacobs would love to see if she was there. And again, our promised restroom stop.
If you've proven that you're both
It was nice, and then we actually ended up in the Ramos to the mall there because it was kind of around the time where it's also been just like so that ended up being
Every time, just find something else. I mean, every time, I think I've looked at the map of New York like a million times. There's something that I didn't see.
That's what I assumed.
Oh, I had to go to I went to the church. Oh yeah.
I did go to work at the Botanica Garden. Was that fun?
It was. I mean,
I've never been there for whenever it used to be like actual. Yeah.
so
I was like, oh, okay, you know. So many people there. So I bet, yeah. Still working?
yes.
Oh, really? Yeah. What do you think?
It's Ernst & Young. But I've been meeting I think that's Boat
I'm sore from working on the air conditioner, but not walking up all those miles of steps.
So
It's,
Riverside
very
Drive, our delightful street on the far west side of Manhattan, which follows the natural contours of the land. Doesn't follow the up and down, the straight up and down pattern of our grid, which was laid out in 1811. The rectilinear blocks, allowing it easier to buy and sell lots for real estate development, and also to make it easier, given that we are an island, from river to river and north-south transportation of goods and services and, of course, people. So the grid, while not very interesting compared to, say, with the more European-style street plan of a place like Washington, D.C., or, of course, like great cities in Europe, but we do have thankfully, we do have Riverside Drive, which actually was laid out by Frederick Law Olmsted, our co-designer of Central Park and Prospect Park. It really was an integrated plan of the Riverside Park and Riverside Drive, and that happened back in the 1870s. So we'll see some of Riverside Park to the left. Further up, Riverside Park becomes another park called Fort Washington Park, and we'll see that because we're going to get a spectacular view of the river in just a little bit after our restroom stop, including we'll see the Little Red Lighthouse. All right. So Riverbank State Park, 1993. It's now known as Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park, named after the longtime Assemblyman, New York State Assemblyman, Denny Farrell, who represented Upper Manhattan for about 40 years. And he was instrumental in getting funding to create the park. It's not a city park, it's a state park. What's unusual about it is the design. It's the only park of its kind in the entire Western Hemisphere. It's inspired in part by Japanese-style rooftop designs. It has every kind of sport and recreational activity. There's even a large community garden, which we will see. And probably most interestingly, but not in the olfactory sense, is that it's actually built above a water sewage treatment facility. So depending on the weather and the wind, you might get a whiff. So I apologize in advance for that. So we're gonna walk through the park so we can do the restrooms and the water fountains and things like
Yeah, it's like I've been to Riverside Park like hundreds of times. We've been to that park over there.
Walking off the path in Riverside Park, and I stepped in things that I never want to remember. A lot of people use it as a bathroom.
They have bathrooms there.
Yeah, but like, I have a feeling that it's been the party, or they're there afterwards.
But I never saw this park. Been all around.
Yeah, I've been all the way up here.
Yeah.
Probably sometimes the other part.
Yeah, well that, like, we walked all the way to the bottom of that park.
Yeah.
And then we got on the road.
all the way up George Washington Bridge. That's what they do.
Right. Oh, it's such a good feel, I guess. There's a bunch of sports here.
So this park has just about every kind of indoor and outdoor sports and recreation facility. Indoor and outdoor swimming. You'll see the skate park coming up on the right. You can even play baseball and softball at night. Right up the field there. Obviously, there's the running track, soccer, football. There's also a large indoor fitness center. There's even a restaurant called Sofrito, selling delicious Puerto Rican cuisine. Yes.
Do you have to pay to go to the fitness center?
Yes, but it's much cheaper than, say, a Crunch or New York Sports Club.
Is it considered the Parks Department? So whatever your you have that membership
It's state.
card?
This is a state
This is a
park.
state
This was
park,
the first
okay.
state park in Manhattan. So
Right,
it's a
of
state.
course.
It's a state
So
facility.
no dogs.
Right. That's right.
And aside from that, everything else.
That's right.
There's state park property in Long Island City.
There is a state park in Long Island City.
Yeah, something over there.
Is he again saying state park? Or is that,
Oh, I don't know. Did you say this is the first state park?
There's one, but there's more than
Yeah, there's more. Whoa. Hold on.
We are that's at 125th Street. So we are about less than a mile out, three-quarters of a mile. Roughly about a mile. The park just goes from 130 to 8 blocks.
I usually bring a small bottle for the
8 blocks long.
What's Sugar Hill?
Well, we're going there.
Okay, so you'll wait.
Yes, that's not even, we're not even close. Well, eventually we get there. Well, it's for the Sugar Hill. It really has to do with the Harlem Renaissance and the emerging African American middle class who found the sweet life. We're called Sugar Hill because the sweet life people enjoy.
Okay.
It has some of the most spectacular urban architecture in the country, as you'll see.
Okay. I grew up in Washington.
Ah,
Sorry, the structure that's like
oh, that's the continuation of Riverside Drive.
Is there anything under that?
I'm not sure, actually, because I've actually been up there, but well, actually, there's a couple of places or roadways we can go under. There's a highway exit and entrance on 158th Street. So I know that, other than that, I think it's closed up. Maybe they store stuff in there, I don't know. Yeah.
2 date questions. What date was that community garden created and what date was this created?
Okay, community garden goes from the 1980s. In the 1980s, this is from 1993. Okay. All right, people are. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to I'll talk a little bit about the river while we're waiting. So gather around. America's river, the Hudson. So beautiful. It inspired the only true school of American landscape painting called the Hudson River School. You've seen some of those paintings, right? Asher Durand, Thomas Cole. You could see them in the New York Historical Society and many other museums. The river starts as a trickle of a mountain stream 300 miles north of here in Lake Terror of the Clouds in the Adirondack Mountain region.
I drank from it.
All right, there you go. You hiked up there, up. And of course it flows to New York Bay. The Indians, the Delaware and Lenape Indians, who hunted and fished and lived around here, they had their own name for the river. They called it Mahigatuck, which means the river that flows both ways, because it does, actually. Now, if we go back to 1825, a huge public works project was completed that actually shaped and altered the course of New York City's history. That was called the Erie Canal. Thank you, or Clinton's Ditch, famously. What the Erie Canal did, a 300-mile-long canal to connect the waterways of New York City with America's heartland via the Great Lakes and the canal from the Albany area going west. And that enabled commercial activity to happen much more efficiently and cheaply. So it brought the riches of the heartland to New York and then perhaps elsewhere around the world. And plus all the goods and service, all the goods that we produced here had markets out west. You have to remember, for probably close to 100 years, New York was one of the leading industrial cities of the world with thousands of factories. At one time we had 80 breweries alone. Breweries are making a comeback, as you know. They're mostly the smaller microbrewery kind. We were the clothing making capital of the world for 100 years, right? Anyway, the Hudson River. Now it's named for a guy who kind of found this waterway by mistake. Henry Hudson, who was hired by the Dutch to find a water route to the Orient. Never quite find that water route, but his ship, the Half Moon, they were sailing down New York Harbor, and they were kind of following the lead of the settlement of Jamestown, like John Smith, which was earlier. Just a couple years earlier. That was in 1609 when Hudson saw this gap into the New World. Went through the Narrows and anchored several points along here. Had some trading and some skirmishes with local Indians. Went clear up to Albany. Reported back to the Dutch government that Lower Manhattan would be a perfect place to establish a trading post. Why? Because of the beavers. Beaver skins, beaver pelts for beaver felt hats were prized throughout Europe, but they had become scarce by the early 1600s. So they were abundant here. Also, it was because of the location, right? Location. The sheltered natural harbor, the deep port of Lower Manhattan. So that's how we, in a sense, came to be, and later the Erie Canal, which made New York the London of the New World. Anyway, so I think hopefully mostly everybody is here. Again, I can't thank you enough for your cooperation. This is a very large group, and I do hope you will continue to enjoy the walk. So what we're going to do is, yes?
When did we discover New Jersey?
Is that what that's called? I don't mean to diss New Jersey. My mother was from a place called Newark, like where Jerry Lewis was from. My mother was a lot funnier than Jerry Lewis. Anyway, I do want to mention, as we're going to walk towards here, and as we walk towards the bridge, you'll see one of New York City's literary landmarks. Anyone know the book by Hildegard Swift? The Little Red Lighthouse and the Great Gray Bridge. Wonderful children's book, but for anybody. So let's continue up here.
This tower and the bridge. Terrain. Light. It's got a so that might be the other one.
It wouldn't take it. It would just barely do it.
Like I'm positive it is.
Well, I think anything.
So that bridge, by the way, when the George Washington Bridge opened in 1931, was the longest leap across an open space on planet Earth, but eclipsed just a few weeks later by the Golden Gate Bridge, which is just a little bit longer. Of course, the Golden Gate was eclipsed by our Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which in turn has been eclipsed by 6 or 7 other bridges. So the George Washington might still be in the top 10 as far as suspension bridges. To give it a sense of scale, you know, the Brooklyn Bridge, which is from 1883, the suspension is almost 3 times as long as the suspension of the Brooklyn Bridge. It added a second level, and because Interstate Highway 95 goes across it, you're looking at the world's busiest bridge by volume. 14 lanes of traffic. With the little red lighthouse between it. Now, one thing I didn't mention about the river, which is very appropriate for Jane's Walks weekend, you know, 1965, New York State Court of Appeals issued a decision, the first decision of its kind, supporting the efforts of the brand new environmental movement, preventing a large power plant being built up by Storm King Mountain. So, you know, the Hudson River gave birth to the modern environmental movement in the 1960s. Okay? So the courts ruled in favor of the local people who got together and to prevent the power plant from being built, because they were able to demonstrate that the river had both environmental and aesthetic and recreational value, which would have been marred by that humongous Con Edison power plant. It was actually the first time in America that a group of citizens successfully prevented a large company or corporation from building a facility. Okay. Similarly, Jane Jacobs, well, one of Jane Jacobs' great accomplishments, you know, she was living in the West Village, and the master builder of New York City, a guy who held about 8 different titles named Robert Moses, wanted to build a highway right through the spine of Manhattan, would have gone right through Washington Square Park. But Jane Jacobs and other regular community people, and even a famous lady who was living in the village at that time, Eleanor Roosevelt, they successfully fought the city and Robert Moses' plan to build that highway right through the middle of Manhattan. Can you imagine Manhattan with the highway right through the middle? That might have happened if it were not for Jane Jacobs. So this is really a day of celebration. Okay. All right, thanks for bearing with me. So what we're going to do, our next stop, we're going to just keep walking until we actually get out of the park, back on Riverside Drive, okay? And then we're going to go up into the beautiful historic districts of Hamilton Heights and Sugar Hill. Yes. Oh, it's a little red light right under the bridge tower. Right very small. Right under the tower. Oh, we're not even. Oh, I said 2.5 to 3 hours. With this many people, it's definitely going to be 3. Okay, great. Yeah, we're just like this is like a little intro. We're just scratching the surface. But thanks. No, but if I obviously respect you for his time. I think you're important. At least the next thing.
Because he was just sort of like, museum too, like, this is amazing. And Now, obviously, I know. Like, on the yeah. But I remember them being concerned, like, I don't know who that is, you know? But I think it's something really to
That guy takes off like a rocket. He gets like a run where he's done.
I know, yeah.
He just said this tour would definitely take 3 hours. So,
What the size of the group?
yeah.
So by the way, you can get to this park by bus. The M11 bus, which goes up Amsterdam Avenue, actually ends here in the park. And then there's the crosstown VX19, which actually goes from the Bronx to Manhattan. It's a great picnic spot at sunset. There's picnic tables, and like I said, there's lots of restrooms, and of course the views at sunset. It's really a nice park. And before this park was built, it was, it really made a huge impact on the neighborhood because there really was no place like this for people to gather and children to play. This is really, there's another part of the neighborhood. We have the Jackie Robinson Park, which has a nice big outdoor swimming pool. But there's really nothing like this. In fact, there really isn't anything like this in any neighborhood in Manhattan. So it's something else that's very special about the community. And again, what a contrast to the busy, bustling Broadway, which we're going to be traversing in just a few minutes. Yes, it was an indoor Olympic-sized swimming pool or an outdoor pool. The indoor pool is open all year round. It's very expensive. What it costs, I know it's maybe like $20 a month. For the gym.
It's crazy.
Or you can pay by the day. I think $3. You can pay by the day.
Great, yeah. Like they're the 11. Coming all the way up here. There's one that came this way earlier.
You know how long it took me to realize that the letter in French right is over. I think I lived in the house and I didn't even go back to it. Because most of the buses are out. But then I was like, I think it'll be a thing. But they weren't far.
What?
I think it would, yeah. I don't know how long it took me. But I was like, oh my god, I'm so dumb.
It took me like maybe a year or a half a year.
No, I never really paid much attention. Because I rarely took the bus. I used to take the subway.
Look at that old theater.
And plus, you just kind of accept things without really thinking about them. I think I had to go away and come back and tried to figure out the bus routes, and then I started to notice the letters in print.
I know. Yeah, it is a salt shed.
Salinating everything.
Take a tour of the tent. Okay. Like 5 VX19 buses.
I know.
It's like 3.
I love that quaint little White House over your left shoulder. So these were built like around 1910, also in part due to the subway. When we get into the Hamilton Heights Historic District, we will see brownstones and mansion-sized townhouses that were built in the 1880s, and I'll talk about why that happened. So while the apartment house era was ushered in at the turn of the 20th century, we still built a few private houses like these, which many of which have been, of course, turned into multi-family dwellings and multiple apartments.
Were some of the apartments built on spec?
Yeah, well, basically, when you see a row of brownstones that all look the same, we call those speculative row houses or brownstone, because they were all likely built by the same builder and landowner and architect. By the way, so what we're going to be doing, we're going to be walking south on Broadway to 144th, and then crossing the street, and then continuing to 142nd, and then we're going to be making our way up to the spectacular campus of City College, which is a one-of-a-kind place. I do want to mention, this whole Broadway corridor here, for about the last 40, 50 years or so, but actually from 135th clear up to 200th Street, Dyckman Street, is the largest community of people from the Dominican Republic in the world, of course, outside of the Dominican Republic. So some people call this area, I tend to call it Dominican Harlem. Once you get, where we're going to end our tour, then we're at basically the upper reaches of Sugar Hill and the beginning of Washington Heights. But again, that's later. So we've done an hour's worth of walking. So we're about 1/3 of the way through. So congratulations. Yes.
So who are the original residents of these?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that when we get into the historic area, because there's sort of more to look at. But that's a good question. It was really Europeans and middle class New Yorkers. This was middle class housing. Over your left shoulder, 146th Street, is one of the many former theater buildings here along the stretch of Broadway. Almost every 6 blocks, there was a large theater. Most of them were built between 1915 and 1920. The former RKO Hamilton, which is now boarded up. My understanding is it's going to be redeveloped. There might be a combination of event space, cultural center, maybe even condos, which often happens. The large building over there, over your left shoulder, of course, in the city MD. So now we're going to see some of the sights and sounds of my neighborhood. Want to go?
I love those guys. Those places.
Hey, what's up?
Way
What's up?
nicer.
Hey, what's up? What's up? Where you want, everybody? Right there, Rutala, for you, everybody. Hey, I want
The wholesome garden pizza.
So, basically starting from around here, going up to where we're going to end the tour. We're not going to see too many of the murals, but we'll see a couple of big ones at the very end of our walk. I'm picking up the entire side of the building. This is the Audubon Mural Project, which is just a couple of years old. It's a really interesting joint endeavor by the National Audubon Society and some local artists in a local art gallery uptown. So what happens, the Audubon Society did a study, and they found that there are 315 species of birds whose existence is threatened by climate change. So what the project is, slowly but surely, they're painting in our neighborhood here all 315 bird species, getting the cooperation of local businesses and housing owners for the artists to actually paint all the birds. They're up to around about 85 birds now, so they have over 200 to go. So it's going to be a very, very exciting project.
This is with permission of the owner.
And I have on your sheet there is a website.
So we can stop to get ice.
Some of you are going to get stuck, don't worry.
Okay.
This is the building that completely that had the fire a few months ago. You might have heard about it on the news. The whole building had to be evacuated.
Waters are ready.
At some school nearby, and then the other guy is a grad student at Columbia. 1.5 bath. So I have the half bath actually in my room. But then again, you can shower. Very comfortable.
So remember, come closer. Keep the sidewalk free. So thank you. So interesting. So living around here, I've been can't help but taking notice of what's been happening in the neighborhood. In the last 6 years, probably about 25 new restaurants have opened up here along Broadway. You can get sushi samba. You can get your Latino Japanese fusion up on 147. The Anchor Wine Bar, exquisite Italian style tapas, pastas and branzino and wines by the glass. There's all kinds of places. There's a ramen noodle shop. There's a new taco place that just opened in honor of Cinco de Mayo. Anyone with Mexican ancestry? My sister-in-law is from Mexico City. Anyway, but I'm not particularly Mexican. It was a great place to. Anyway, so a lot happening in the neighborhood. So I mentioned the neighborhood's really anchored like 3 generations of people from the Dominican Republic. But in the mix, you have students and professors from Columbia University and City College. Basically, Columbia University is building a new campus, just between 126th and 133rd. And then the medical school near Presbyterian Hospital is just under 160th. So this area is sort of in between all that. And then, young professionals have discovered that this neighborhood is actually less expensive than Brooklyn. So there's a lot of expats, young expats from Brooklyn that are living around.
Tell the people in Brooklyn.
Hey, smoothie truck. It's the same time.
Hey.
Or they have regular.
I know. Is it? Texas. Wait, this is the second one we've seen in the past. This Texas chicken.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one. The other one was in Harlem too.
We have an Oklahoma.
Well, the other one was at on the east side.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it must be now.
Chicken to go. You notice it?
And thank you for leaving space for the normal pedestrians. What does that make us? Well, other pedestrians. Sorry, didn't mean to use pejoratives, at least this early in the tour. A lot of interesting things about the neighborhood. So every block has a barber shop, sometimes 2. So at night, Friday and Saturday nights, what is traditional in the neighborhood, as late as 11 o'clock or midnight, they are packed with men getting their hair cut. It's a big social event, social congregation networking in the neighborhood barbershop. So not so busy now, but come back at 10, 11 o'clock tonight, places like this will be just packed with people.
Yeah?
There's like a different barbershop. Well, one
Yeah, I didn't know that until my friend did. Oh yeah? Tell her that. Yeah, it's like your haircut, but it's like I have to check this out. It's really good during the day. How much you like? Yeah, give me some friends.
Was that going this way? Yeah, I thought you were past the club.
Yeah, with yes, there's going to be a place where you can see like all of Harlem from an overlook, and I can bring that to Michael vividly. But I'm going to be talking a lot about development over the next hour or so. So we're not yet in the historic district, but I thought that it's a pretty quiet street, so I thought I'd talk about the development and building of townhouses. So in this neighborhood, they were mostly built between like 1885 and 1900. We had the subway opening in 1904, but starting around in 1880, we had a trolley route on nearby Amsterdam Avenue, which is just one block further. So we did have trolleys down in the valley. Starting in 1879, we had the 9th Avenue L, which was an elevated steam railway, and until 1900, until they electrified it. By the way, we had L's coming all the way up to East Harlem on 2nd and 3rd Avenue as early as 1880, but they mostly came down in the 1940s. Some of the steel was melted down and used for the Second World War effort. So anyway, so this is what middle-class housing looked like, in the late 1800s. They were typically organized uniformly. The kitchen and service entrance was real on the street level. One floor up with usually the highest ceilings, sometimes 12-foot ceilings, called the parlor, where people did the entertaining. Called the parlor coming from the French, parler, to speak. That's why it's still called the parlor. Then the bedrooms are usually on the upper floors. They're all different styles of architecture, and we're going to see some amazing Queen Anne style townhouses that are probably 3 times the size of this easily a little bit later. But anyway, now during the Depression and the World Wars, most of the houses throughout Harlem and even other neighborhoods, Upper East Side, Brooklyn, were broken up into apartment buildings. The trend, though, over the last 20 years is to restore them for single-family use, although probably a majority, certainly in Harlem, are still multifamily. Sometimes the owner will live in what we call the garden duplex. They'll have the garden in the back and the 2 lower floors, and they'll rent out the top floors, getting some nice rental income to defray their expenses. And of course, a lot of these townhouses and brownstones have working fireplaces, adding to the ambiance. And beautiful inlaid wood, yeah. I still own part of a brownstone on the Upper West Side, and mine is like 20 feet. 20 feet is also very common. By the way, when wealthy people bought land uptown, people like John Jacob Astor, who was our first real estate mogul after making a lot of money in the fur trade, immigrant from Germany, came after the American Revolution, bought up land and sold it for many times it was worth. They usually sold land. They apportioned lots 20 feet by 100 feet was the common lot size for selling and development. Yes, the servants might live downstairs in the kitchen, or depending on the configuration, might also live upstairs. It's usually downstairs. Sorry, but that was a community art project.
It just cheers everyone.
The community raises money. Sometimes they get grants from the various cultural, government, and private sector cultural groups. Also, not this garden, but Bette Midler started an organization. Her organization, Bette Midler, provided money to a fair number of uptown Manhattan gardens.
You notice on the corner there, all the doors are closed. Is that building going to be knocked down?
Yeah, sure.
And that's usually
I know.
Sí. Es que no llama a nadie hello.
going backwards. But, yeah.
Mark here, he took a set of his classes at one o'clock, so he can walk around the park, he can film at 12:30.
Yeah, we have been here. Pay the $5. Is that an open house New York thing to get into the college? I don't remember if we paid or. No, I think we just walked in. I think it was just open.
It might have been like some kind of 4 day.
Yeah, because we were sitting in the building for like 20 minutes waiting for like the tour to start, and they were just like, "Oh, tours are like at 1 and 3 or whatever."
You know what, you're right, because I remember this and you were like, what is this? We did, because they were talking about how they were trying to restore all the gargoyles and stuff. Yeah.
So I'm going to talk a bit about City College, but not here. The reason I'm stopping here is that the architecture of these collegiate Gothic buildings, which were built between 1904 and 1907, they're for modern buildings, of course. This is the closest we can get to the famous gargoyles. You'll see them adorning all the buildings. So there's a lot to talk about here. Let's go around to the famous quadrangle. We can also see one of New York City's most spectacular buildings called Shepherd Hall, inspired by. I like it. Yeah. Very fine.
I never really realized it. I do. I'm not sure. I haven't been here that long. He's got a lot of
That is Shepherd Hall, one of New York City's most spectacular buildings. I'll talk about that. Deserves its own special little attention. Last year I did a tour. Last fall I did a tour for Open House New York, where I brought people in Shepherd Hall. So the very spot where Einstein delivered a speech. Just on campus. Also frankly doing those stuff. So. Open the doors to all. Let the children of the rich and poor take their seats together. So City College of New York was founded as America's first free college back in 1847 by a man named Townsend Harris. This campus, it started downtown, this campus was built between 1904 to 1907. It's one of, I think, the 21 or 20, I forget which number it is. I attended one of them myself, so I should know this, but I was ancient history. So there are I think there are 21 campuses of the City University of New York, which was free up until 1977. When the city was broke in the 70s and it was very debatable. I actually was part of a group of students that took over one of the college campuses. We shut it down because we were protesting and demonstrating an end to the over a 100-year tradition of free tuition and open admissions. It's still quite a bargain compared to your private universities like NYU and Columbia, and they have great faculty. Here at City College, we have graduate and undergraduate students, about 20,000. Excellent graduate programs in education, psychology, engineering, and the Colin Powell School of Public Service. Colin Powell graduated, City College graduated in 1958. Other well-known graduates, former Mayor Edward I. Koch, Bernard Baruch, who advised 6 presidents, the famous man in finance, sociologist Daniel Bell, Richard Hofstadter, philosopher, and lots of other people. In any case, the architect, one of the greatest local architects, his name was George Post. Okay, he actually fought in the Civil War for the Union. He was a colonel in the Civil War. He went on to work for the famous American architect Richard Morris Hunt, who was the first architect from this country to go to Paris to study at l'École des Beaux-Arts. Post also was famous for designing the New York Stock Exchange building, the Brooklyn Historical Society, and numerous other buildings, and of course these. And very interesting, notice the contrast between the stone, the different stones. The dark stone is the bedrock of Manhattan. It's a metamorphic rock close to 400 million years old called schist. Where did they get all that schist? When they excavated the subway tunnels, they decided to put some of the stone to good use. It's such a great New York story. Yeah.
Did you say it took 3 years to build this campus?
I think these buildings took about 4 years.
That's all?
Yeah.
And it takes them that long to build one building.
Yeah, they were pretty efficient about that. People, but in any case, so these rocks are very important, not because they're beautiful when used for buildings, because if it wasn't for the stone, we wouldn't have been able to build all of our skyscrapers. Manhattan would never have evolved the way it does as a skyscraper city, because these rocks, again, which are 350 to 400 million years old, are very strong, metamorphic rocks that anchor our buildings. Okay? But these aren't the oldest and strongest rocks in the city. There's rock formations up in the Bronx that are about 1 million years old called Fordham Gneiss, G-N-E-I-S-S. So as we like to say, the Bronx is abundant with gneiss, but here in Manhattan we're full of schist. Anyway, by the way, you shouldn't take anything I say on this walk for granted. I should quit while I'm ahead. Anyway, the good news is we're pretty much on level. We don't have any more uphill climbing. From here on, it's all downhill, especially the quality of my narration. So, City College, what do you think?
We didn't cover this part. We just walked around the big building.
Okay. Anyway, City College of New York, by the way, is the only public college that has a school of engineering. The only public school of engineering. Cooper Union, though? Cooper Union is private. Private.
What?
hardest to do. And there was always someone who was like upset with their kid or they didn't get in. And it's like, well, it's competitive. It's not against you. There are a lot of you. And I felt discriminated against. Like, well, there are so many schools that are so close together. Like, someone told me that you all have 4.0. Like,
One of the 21 campuses. The public school, it's the only public university that has a school of engineering. All the other engineering schools, Cooper Union, Pratt, they're privately run. By the way, on campus here, this is really great for young people. They're not one, but two high schools, including this one here, High School for Math, Science, and Engineering. There's another public high school on the south end of the campus, right down on 135th Street. Now, if we were to walk this way, we would encounter buildings that were built over the last 10 years where they're doing a lot of research in technology and science. That's further down the campus.
How many acres is the campus?
What I also want to, it's a pretty good sized campus. There's a large concert hall where they have concerts throughout the year called Mary Davis Hall. And then there's a small venue which has less than 100 seats called the Gatehouse, which is in a former facility that was part of our Croton Aqueduct system back in the 1800s.
The school has a really great robotics.
That's where we met. And then we did the Croton Aqueduct tour when we went down into the. We actually met at the gate. Yeah.
Some private, some non-profit organizations supported.
Building with Willie Gardner.
not so
Stocks and always does well, but there were.
I'm glad that I fully like I had it on my calendar to check it, forgot about it, and then somewhere I stumbled across Jane's Walk. I was like, oh my god, it's this weekend. I thought it was last weekend. But I don't have enough time. We're already doing some crap. We're gonna miss them. So I'm glad that it was beginning.
Yeah.
36 so I could actually go. I feel like there's so many of these things it's hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
Like I keep trying to find things. It's like I'm glad I saw that meetup with the Mongo depression band.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
That was a good spot.
Yeah. I got refunded literally like maybe an hour after.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like saved to be that just in case. Like this is what they said. I was prepared. Just that I mean like I have a popular recording company, so I figured there should be no problem. I would have done I wish I had caught him here. If people start out as like New Year, and then afterwards, and then like can't afford it. Yard sale. Let's go to the yard sale. I still feel like I'm not.
So welcome to the historic district of Hamilton Heights. This area was not settled heavily for residential use until the 1880s. Before that, it was country estates. One of the people that had a lot of land here was a physician named Dr. Samuel Bradhurst, who's at Bradhurst Avenue, not too far from here. And Bradhurst and another landowner sold a whole bunch of acres to founding father Alexander Hamilton back in the 1790s. And we will see the Hamilton House. We're not going to be going inside, but we'll get a good look at it. And it's certainly very easy to come back up here to visit. as Duke Ellington used to say, take the A train to nearby 145th Street. But in any case, so Hamilton's house was, before where it currently is, was actually right next door here, and fallen into disrepair, so it was moved into St. Nicholas Park. So you'll see the house, intact, amazingly, moved into St. Nicholas Park around the corner. But originally, it was 2 blocks north of here on 143rd Street. It was moved when they began to develop the area heavily for housing. But again, the time that the house was built, year 1800, this was still out in the country. The area was first settled by the affluent, middle class and upper middle class New Yorkers and immigrants from Germany, England, Ireland, Holland, mostly, France and Belgium to some extent. This church was completed in 1891. It's St. Luke's Episcopal Church. It was built as an affiliate uptown church to a famous church in Greenwich Village, which still stands on Hudson Street, which dates back to 1822. St. Luke's in the Fields. And when that was built, it was literally in the fields. That was the Reverend Clement Clark Moore's church, who's buried not too far from me. Anyway, initially, while the church was being built, the Hamilton house, which was no longer in the Hamilton family, even though Eliza, Hamilton's wife, outlived Alexander for 50 years. It's quite a lady, right? Quite a person in her own right. Anyway, so services for the church were actually initially held in the Hamilton house. So let's go take a look, and then we'll visit Hamilton Terrace.
Is he buried? Where's the house?
He's buried in Trinity. He's buried in Wall Street.
Cargo. For this long.
Now this is really back. Now they got it. Building take that one. And so they keep that. So now it's
They moved it about 15 years ago. I think it was 2000. It was moved here in 2006. 2006. Yeah, so just briefly, so you need at least an hour to visit the house. It's free. It's a national park run by the National Park Service. Upstairs are the period rooms. They only allow a few people in at a time. There's a really nice, like 25-minute movie about the life of Alexander Hamilton, and this museum displays on the lower level. Hamilton called this house, this venture, his sweet little project. You know, he had his home and office both on Broadway and Wall Street, you know, in the late 1700s. And you all know about. I don't need to talk so much about his life and all that he accomplished. But he grew up poor and orphaned in the West Indies, and he came here as an older teenager to make his way in the New World. He ended up attending the precursor to Columbia University called King's College, given funding by his former employers at a counting house in St. Croix. He was actually born in Nevis, in the West Indies, and he dropped out to join the American Revolution. He was essentially George Washington's right-hand man for a quarter of a century. And of course, he only lived to age 43. He was shot in the infamous duel across the river in New Jersey, not too far from where we were standing in the park earlier. He was shot coincidentally by a guy that lived about a mile north of here in a house you can also visit called the Jamel Mansion. I'm talking about Aaron Burr, who actually was the sitting vice president at the time of the duel. Anyway, it's one of our great stories. Some of you perhaps have been lucky enough to see the musical. Anyway, finally, he and Eliza getting their due. So we're doing pretty well time-wise, considering the size of the group. So now we're going to be walking through the heart of the historic districts of Hamilton Heights and Sugar Hill. This is all protected, so there's not going to be no building up, no tearing down. What we see from the street can never change. Okay. This is one of New York City's 120 or so protected historic districts. Whenever you see the brown street signs, it tells you you're in the historic area. So you take away the cars, and this block coming up looks pretty much like it did 130 years ago. And we'll talk lots more to talk about. But by the way, this block is very unusual. It's sort of in the shape of a hook. It's an unbroken block, three streets long. So we're gonna end up at 144th Street. I'm gonna stop at one point to point out where the first lady of the piano lived. For fans of jazz, Mary Lou Williams, who was a mentor to a great bebop artist, Dizzy Gillespie, Tony Fox, and Charlie Parker, who used to gather in her apartment. Yeah, that's right, of course. That's right. Hamilton, by the way, there was a famous pamphlet from Thomas Jefferson, who had very competing views about the country and the direction it would take. Hamilton envisioned an industrial country, also with farms, but of course Jefferson, being from rural Virginia, envisioned an agrarian society. Jefferson didn't want the new government to bail out the states from the Revolutionary War debt, but Hamilton developed a whole scheme for the government to pay the states, including New York states and the New England states, and for the government to go into debt for good reasons, to borrow money. Ironically, Jefferson, who initially had opposed that Hamilton scheme, as president in 1804, he signed the Louisiana Purchase, tripling the size of the country, which could not have been done without Hamilton's plans.
You don't have any snacks, do you? Meat? That's pretty cool.
I think I would have just said, well, start taking the bike and then shimmy and just spun out. But he's setting off sparks.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting ride. You need it. Go ahead. Go up. I mean, I guess he's the kind of, yeah, I'm not that much here. And then you got the, we actually did it back.
Probably about 1936 or 37. Would that have been the only campus?
Yes, City College
There
of
was
New York.
no- since you lived
Well,
in
there are other
Brooklyn.
city universities. But my Brooklyn
She
College.
went to City College.
Okay, good. Yeah, 'cause Brooklyn College is already open.
So you go to Brooklyn
Yeah,
College?
there's.
Two things. How do they think that apartment building is? There's an apartment building. and
Right.
then the street.
Yeah, that's
So
what-
they got, how did that do?
Well, you know, we didn't have landmarking and protection until really the 1970s, and a lot of our historic districts were not designated until like the 1990s, 1980s, 1990s. So anything could happen until until a street or a neighborhood was protected, which, you know, most of we're always adding new historic districts throughout the city, but the ones in this area were designated between probably the 1980s till around 2000. So before that, new buildings could be added and so forth.
So do you have to conform in terms of?
Yeah. So basically, if you own property, like all the homeowners here of these townhouses and brownstones, again, this is historic. So you can't change what you see from the street. You can only restore the facade. You can't build up. You might get permission to build like a greenhouse or a penthouse set back from the roof, so you can't see it from the street. And so you can always apply for a variance. Let's say the paint color or the style of windows no longer exist. You can apply for a variance from the City Landmarks, the Landmarks Commission. I'm going to point out a few things. Around the corner, there was a church down the hill, which I didn't point out, Presbyterian Church. That's where the Harlem School of the Arts was founded by opera singer, Harlem resident Dorothy Maynor. The school built a new building around the corner on St. Nicholas. And over here is another children's program, of which there are many in Harlem. That's the Children's Art Carnival, which started out as like a satellite program of the Museum of Modern Art for Harlem children. So again, programs, classes, activities in the visual arts. The Harlem School of the Arts is everything: visual, performing, music. A little later, we're going to pass by the world-famous Dance Theater of Harlem. So Harlem is famous for its many cultural institutions, museums. So this apartment building here is where the First Lady of Jazz, or the First Lady of Piano, lived, Mary Lou Williams, from 1945 to 1951. And again, she mentored a lot of the jazz musicians of the era who were young and up and coming, like Charlie Parker, who had come to New York from Kansas City, the great sax player, Dizzy Gillespie, who came from the South, and our own local guy from the Lincoln Center area, Thelonious Monk, great piano player and composer. So Harlem really started to become associated as sort of the black capital, the African American capital of the world, or of the country, starting in the 1920s, a period that became known as the Harlem Renaissance, okay? Before that, Harlem was mostly Europeans. In fact, there was an area just north of Central Park, 110th to 125th Street, that at one time was the third largest Jewish community in the world, from about 1880 to around 1920, 1930. A lot of Jewish people came up from the Lower East Side. They found a lot better housing in Harlem. anyway. So what happened was we had the Great Migration, World War I, where a lot of our factory jobs are vacated with men going off to war. So our New York-based labor recruiters went down south, and people of African descent, came up north for the jobs, also to escape persecution and lynching. Again, the failure of Reconstruction in the South really continued, in a sense, various forms of slavery or enslavement, certainly serious discrimination. There was still discrimination, plenty of discrimination, segregation up north too as well, but probably not as severe. Earlier even, in 1904, a local fellow, Philip Payton, who started his own African-American realty company, there was a lot of over-speculation in building. There was a downturn in the economy in the late 1800s, turn of the 20th century, so a lot of apartments were vacant. So we convinced apartment owners to rent to people of African descent. So many layers of history in the neighborhood. And the Harlem Renaissance really lasted from like the end of World War I through the 1940s and 1950s. The black intelligentsia, the middle class, and the famous entertainers and writers, visual artists. Duke Ellington came up from Washington, D.C., ended up writing over 2,000 songs, and lived a little further up in Sugar Hill, where we're heading in just a few minutes. One of the more affluent areas in the late 1800s and the 20th century. Yeah, what certainly is a Parisian-style house with the French-style mansard roof. The next house on the corner was featured in a movie. Anyone seen The Royal Tenenbaums? Yes. Remember Seymour Owen Wilson crashes into a house? That's the house, the Royal Ten up here in the corner. The Royal Tenenbaums. This one here?
No.
I really wouldn't like it. I really like it. It's my favorite.
It's Wes Anderson.
Huh?
Was it Wes Anderson?
Was it? I tend to, I don't know. It was
That's what I'm asking.
I don't know. My mind is kind of like fuzzy.
Okay.
Super pretty.
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thanks.
People tried to buy out like the whole area.
Together?
We used to be able to get 15, 20, 25 years ago, people used to come to Harlem and buy a townhouse or brownstone for like in the hundreds of thousands. Now they go for like between 2 and 4 million, depending on the size and condition. So a guy named Richard Norman Shaw, who was from England, developed a style of architecture.
Symmetry and the colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
style, which is a melange, an eclectic style of Gothic, Romanesque, and Renaissance styles. These are some of the greatest examples in the country. With the turrets, with the bay windows, the varied architectural style. You even see some Flemish Dutch style with the step gables behind you here. Very indicative of Flemish revival or style. And these are from the 1880s. So you saw the gorgeous apartment house around the corner. So again, this was a prime area for affluent, upper middle class people going back to the 1880s and 1890s into the turn of the 20th century. And that's what it is. Although quite a few of these are now apartment buildings, they're not single family. There are a few that are. You also find some of the townhouses are churches and houses of worship. By the way, Harlem in total is probably close to 400 houses of worship. Mostly churches, quite a few mosques, and a couple of synagogues. And we're going to head
Backwards.
It's a really pretty block here too.
apartment 盖高，但是有钱应该是盖高。
So, again, this is gonna, I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna stand over here so you can hear me. Again, folks, you need to relieve room on the sidewalk. So to give you an idea how popular this area was, believe it or not, back in 1924, the first Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade started at this intersection we just crossed. Wow. But back then it was known as the Macy's Christmas Parade. They didn't change the name until a few years, I think until 1927. This spectacular granite church is the Convent Avenue Baptist Church, completed in 1899. Every Monday, all the Baptist ministers from the entire area have a weekly meeting at this church. So it's the hub of baptism for this entire New York City metro area. Back in March 1968, 9 days before he was assassinated, Martin Luther King Jr., this was the last place he visited in New York City. Okay, so the tablets on this church from 1888 give us a window into who was living in the area back then. The tablet on the other side of the entrance, if you look closely, you will see the German language. Okay, so it started out as a German Lutheran church, then it became Dutch, and now it's reflective of the community today. Excuse me. May I come back?
I can't go back.
Yeah. The fall off.
Yeah.
The signs are there.
People the German language before. You know?
It commemorates one of the first pastors. Again, when he was a German. You know, interestingly enough, I haven't seen any evidence of carriage houses in this area. Or the automobile age, but like I say, at the time that all the houses were built here, they had the trolley route on Amsterdam Avenue, one block over here. And you know, people in means probably maybe hired horse-drawn carriages simply to drop them off. Yeah, it's possible. But like I said, usually carriage houses were built right in the back of the building. You would have the building, and then you would have the carriage house, sometimes separated by a garden, sometimes not. But it's possible. Some of them might have been torn down to make way. Again, remember, there was a huge demand for housing by the 1890s, turn of the 20th century. But I haven't seen or read about evidence of that this was like a carriage house community. Why is the street so much higher than well, you'll see it goes down. You see, this is a very hilly neighborhood, you know. So you'll see the street slopes down to St. Nicholas. Good, great. What are your questions, by the way?
You want to take pictures of it?
I took one.
Okay.
Wrong name again.
All right, bye. I was trying to decide myself. Well, that's at 1:35. I thought it was there.
Yeah, you're right. It's back by the city university, right?
I'm not sure. I never actually got to go. But I always planned.
With my favorite probably being Fort Greene from the mill. Oh, Strivers Row. Yes. Now, yes, Strivers Row in the Harlem Plain definitely had horse-drawn carriages and stables in the back of the building. Those were built to accommodate from the 1880s. Yeah, I cover that area. That's in the St. Nicholas Historic District in the Harlem Plain, meaning down in the flat part, really central Harlem. But around here, like I said, I haven't seen any of them. Okay, so this is really cool. So we're going to see sort of a one-of-a-kind place. So inside here is a wonderful art gallery. There's Dan. I forewarned Dan there were a large group. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to a wonderful local art gallery. Artists of the African diaspora, even works of one of the great Harlem artists who, like me, started out as a social worker. His name is Romare Bearden. His works are in the Metropolitan Museum. So this gallery, is that right, Dan, that you really have one of the great collections of Bearden?
Yes, well, Bearden was my boss's mentor, so
right.
Yeah,
That's how the gallery
collaborated very closely.
But anyway, so I think what we're going to do is just going to have a brief visit. So so let's see how many. So everyone from here over, come with me. We're just going to take 5 minutes, and then others will wait patiently, and we'll give you a little introduction to the S.E. Green Gallery. Thank you.
Number 6 is called Westchester Square, and it's one of the...
Again, if anyone didn't get a sheet, again, I probably but I will email you.
Oh, 6:30.
My card.
I can eat and then like.
There's a few people using the restroom, so thank you for your patience. I hope everyone's enjoying the walk so far. How's it going? Jenny Jacobs would have thought of Hamilton Heights. She might have thought that this area was a little bit too quiet, but she would have been happy to know that St. Nicholas Avenue, Amsterdam, one block, and Broadway is bustling. Plenty of people and apartment buildings. So again, it's typical of our neighborhoods. Like for example, let's take the Upper West Side, for example. Which has your major commercial thoroughfares, and then has your quiet streets between West End Avenue and Eastside Drive. Let's see.
Are you gonna
I'm okay. So do whatever you want. So I'll follow you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Restroom door is open. We're going to be walking towards. We're going to be walking this way. We're going to be making a left. Actually, we're going to go shop. We're going to go to Food Town. Anyway.
I got a lot of plants. Look at this. I got a lot of plants I love that. I got the old camera. Sure what?
And we're going to cross this way. So this is one of my favorite uptown restaurants. It's called Sion Cafe. It's owned and operated by African, Ethiopian, Jewish people. And so they have everything from Israeli and Middle Eastern to traditional Ethiopian food that you eat without silverware with the injera bread. They have a lovely patio. They have live music several times a week, no cover charge. And it's just a great, friendly, wonderful neighborhood place. So, yeah. And if you're coming up here from downtown, it's really easy. Do you know that if you take the A train or the ABCD to 145th Street and you exit the uptown section of the train, it's just right across the street between 147 and 148. So you can get to here around here. It's going to use this area just very easily. Yeah, it's open. There are people out. Most people are sitting outside. If you're curious, you can take a peek. We're gonna continue walking towards 150th Street.
Yeah.
You know,
When do you want to stop?
Gas station.
Oh, Chris and Carmen live right there.
Yeah. I knew like.
Yeah. This looks totally different in the daylight. Yeah.
So this site was in the news recently. The actor Ed Norton was filming a movie in Harlem, and we're filming. There was a great old jazz club here. And the site is, and I guess while they were doing the filming, a fire broke out. The whole place burned up. It just happened about a month or so ago, right? St. Nick's. But yeah, the club is called St. Nick's Club. It was a great old school jazz club. By the way, I failed to mention, there are plenty of places to hear live music in Harlem. On the back of your sheet, again, if you didn't get it, I'll give you your business card and email it to you. There's a great website called HarlemOneStop.com that has everything going on in Harlem. Restaurants, live music, culture, museums, you name it, lectures, the great Schomburg Library down that way on the street. Sadly, we lost St. Nick's Club, which actually had been closed down by the city's health department about 4 to 5 years ago. HarlemOneStop.com. Spelling out the one right. Harlem 1 stop.
I'm volunteering
God has the picture. We don't have any.
Yeah, that's their apartment over there. I actually went when first time I went to come look for their apartment. I went down that way because these are both. I think they're called the same streets, called the same thing. And
That's confusing.
yeah.
Sorry.
So by the way, we're sort of on a schedule to end more or less about 4 o'clock, so as advertised, 2.5 to 3 hours. I can't believe that it won't be too much more than that, even with this group, but thanks for bearing with me here. So I mentioned earlier, this area was developed initially for country estates, middle and upper middle class people, and some affluent people, like James A. Bailey, who was the chief financial officer for the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. This was his house, known as the Bailey Mansion. So it started out as a private house. It still is a single family residence. It was sold and purchased about 5 years ago. For many years it was a funeral home.
Oh.
Okay. And when we're going to cross the street, because if you look carefully at the stained glass window, the stained glass windows in this house are very unusual. They were the first of its kind, I'm not sure in the world, but at least in the U.S., where it's very, very finely detailed glasswork as opposed to the large panes that you see traditionally. I think it was an affiliate of the Tiffany Studios that developed this particular kind of stained glass, which was a very complicated process, well beyond typical stained glass work. So you take a close look.
you trying to be there? Are you going to be there
If you
for?
look carefully, you'll see the top of Yankee Stadium over in the Bronx. So I'm going to wait for the...
Oh, okay. I said something, sorry. You want
So, oh yes, I used to live on 136th Street. 136 between Lennox and Clayton Tower. I'm going to point out where the building is a whole lot of things. But I hope a couple of people find it. So, you're not, yeah, the triple nickel down there. No, I'm 409. So over your left shoulder, Yankee Stadium over in the Bronx. Now, right across from Yankee Stadium, here in Harlem Sugar Hill, for many years there was another baseball stadium called the Polo Grounds, where the New York Giants played until they left us for San Francisco after the 1957 season. But 5 years later, our beloved New York Mets played their first 2 years in the Polo Grounds, and I was old enough to actually be taken to New York Mets games. So that's why, still to this very day, although sometimes embarrassing to wear it, I am still a New York Mets fan. There you go. They started right up here, here in Sugar Hill. So this gives us an opportunity to get a sense of the topography. So we've been up in the Heights, right, Hamilton Heights, Sugar Hill, and down here is the Harlem Plain, sort of in a valley, because when you get to the Harlem River, there's another, there's another hill sloping up into the West Bronx. So this is kind of like a valley. This is Jackie Robinson Park, and what else can I say? Yeah. So this is all sort of like Upper Central Harlem here. There's a really cool house across the street. We're going to double back to St. Nicholas Avenue. This house was built in 1891 for a German immigrant publishing family, the Benzingers. The architect actually was also a German immigrant, Richard Tickle. Today, for the last 20 or 30 years, this house has been a New York City facility for formerly homeless adults, helping them transition into community housing. So basically, it's sort of like a halfway house for homeless adults. When you cross the street, the tallest building in your view is very famous, 409 Edgecombe. That's where Judge Thurgood Marshall lived for many years. There's the movie that came out about his early career. So Walter White also was there. Originally? Another artist who did the stories of the Harlem Renaissance. 409 Edgecombe.
I forgot the Great Center was today.
Really?
Я постараюсь 12 ночей. Хорошо, спасибо.
Did you see that UPS Amazon locker?
Oh, I thought it was just for UPS. Is it just Amazon?
No, I mean like a
Yeah.
Amazon locker, but it was a UPS locker.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. That's how it should be.
Tour guide type people over around the neighborhood. And it was just such a great chance to walk through all these places. I think I've done some of this before. So we stayed on Broadway. So actually, I've only seen the Broadway part.
Good as time.
Hey, Barbara. Hello. Okay. There's a lot of dates.
So we made it all the way up to 152nd Street. So again, we're ending 157th and Broadway. So we are on the home stretch. We've done so well. So this obviously is Convent Garden. Like Jenny's Garden that we saw at the beginning of our walk, it was really a sweat equity effort by community residents. This actually was a gas station at one point. But the gas station closed down. It was a total eyesore, and community people got involved. I think Louisa Robinson was the spearheader. So you can see it's quite lovely. By the way, what I didn't mention, Convent Avenue, which also runs through the heart of the City College campus, is named because there actually was a convent down by where City College is. It burned down back in the 1880s. So Convent Avenue basically was a road leading to and from the convent. That's why this avenue is just it doesn't go very far. It goes basically from just north of 125th Street up here to 152nd. Anyway. Oh, yeah, there we go. There it is. Thank you. Right, it was down by Washington College. South, right, below 135th. Thank you. So we have a, there we go. All right, well, it's the same on the same building. Want to test it? Yeah, if you want to test it around, make sure you pick up. Yep. So. I mentioned this wonderful Baptist church. The building itself was originally a private house.
Oh, keep going.
Thank you.
Wow.
Never seen history move so fast. Slow down, bro.
That's probably leaving where they had like their hat and then some beverages.
There is a dance theater in Harlem which looks just like a kiosk. That's what it looks like. I think it's
So
it's even got a fence for the
world-renowned Dance Theater of Harlem, which began back in 1969. It was started by principal ballet dancer at the New York City Ballet, Arthur Mitchell, and Carol Shook. And actually, the idea actually came out of a horrible tragedy. And the tragedy was the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in 1968. So the Dance Theater of Harlem was born from that tragedy. It was meant to be a place of inspiration for young people, and of course they provide classes for children of all ages in ballet, modern, some African dance, but it was grounded in classical ballet. The first performance, interestingly enough, was at the Guggenheim Museum back in 1971 of the Dance Theater of Harlem. It's just one of many of the great gifts that Harlem has given New York, U.S., and the world. There we go.
you can have like a schoolyard. Dennis. And then hands off.
Yes, yes. Modern handball there.
So believe it or not, if we turn back the hands of time to the era of the Civil War, before the Civil War, after 1850s, 1870s, this was the village of Carmansville. Because all the land here was basically owned by one guy, a very successful and affluent manufacturer of boxes named Richard Carman. So Carmansville no longer exists, but some of the buildings remain. Over your left shoulder was originally was actually built in the French style as a police precinct. Now it's a mixed-use building. It's used in part by a church and a school. Over your left shoulder, there's a building that was built as a factory in the 1880s. It was the Joseph Loft Silk Ribbon Factory. They manufactured over 300 different types of silk ribbons for the garment industry. In fact, you can see the name just below the smokestack there. You can see the name Joseph. It says Joseph Loft. And if we were to actually go down there, which we're not, you'll see also inscribed in the building, it says Silk Ribbons. So a little bit of manufacturing going on here back in the late 1800s. Now, that's a mixed-use commercial building, so it's just all offices, tech startups, and have some artists. Anyway, so we're going to continue up this way.
Yeah. I have.
Hope you can leave room for the very important historically is the AME Zion churches were the first churches in this country that were led by people of African descent. They actually started back in Philadelphia in 1787 by an organization called the Free African Society. By the way, slavery actually ended in the state of New York back in 1827. So again, now the Mother AME Zion Church today, the Mother Congregation, is actually in Harlem. It's on 136th Street, right there on Alcatraz Boulevard. By the way, Frederick Douglass was actually a member of the congregation of the world, one of the early Zion churches, which was down on Church Street in Manhattan. That was the first New York building. Some of you may have been to the African Burial Ground National Monument, which is down on Lower Broadway, just north of City Hall. There's a large African community of Green All right, would you guys the street?
Hey, sir, you know who this artist is? I'm the father.
You're the father.
It's your lucky day. You guys all lucked out. But I'm the father of the artist. He turned 30 years old this year.
Okay. Yeah, we've been talking about the Audubon mural project.
Right.
So, yes. So we've seen some of the. What's your son's name?
You'll see his signature in the lower left-hand corner. His artist's name is Gaia, G-A-I-A, which is Greek for Earth Goddess.
Okay, great.
Okay. So the title of the mural, which was done in October 2015, is called Harlem Endangered. So it fits in with your history of your trip, or the theme of your trip, because obviously the theme of the endangered species, endangered by the climate change, but also the gentrification of many inner cities. This used to be a Jewish neighborhood, an African American neighborhood. Now it's predominantly Hispanic, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So,
there's still diversity, but yeah, that's generally sort of the trend.
There's a trend, right? And he incorporated that theme in this part of this section of the mural, where you'll see he took a photograph of some African American men as part of the Great Migration from the South to the industrial North, Chicago and New York.
Yeah.
In the lower left is the hand on the globe, Dutch East India Company. Much of New York is Dutch.
Right. We had talked about that too.
Great. And in the upper right-hand corner, you have the image of John James Audubon. So when you post this, you go hashtag Gaia Street Art. Thank you. Right. Gaia Street Art.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Great, I've been here a million times.
So that was cool. So we're now facing the only active cemetery on the island of Manhattan. If you want to get buried on this island, this is your only option. It's the Trinity Episcopal Church Cemetery uptown, affiliated with Trinity Church on Wall Street, where Alexander Hamilton and Eliza are buried, and along with the other dignitaries of the earlier era. They do have the Jewish quarter section of the cemetery, so you don't have to be Christian. And there's Ed Koch.
Is that where Koch is? Yeah, I thought so. Cool.
They have a separate gate to get to France. And I haven't looked into it.
That's the second time that happened to me on a tour. That someone directly involved with something we're looking at on the tour happened to be standing there.
Gaia Street Art.
Gaia Street.
Gaia Street Art. Hashtag Gaia Street Art. Andrew is Andrew. He goes by Gaia, but it's Andrew. Sure.
I forget who the other one was. I know we were at the Angel Orientals, some kind of, I don't know what they did. I didn't get the upper right? I forgot. Yeah. Want to sit down somewhere, like sit, and like a place where we can actually relax, like it has a bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. So, this is the only place that you can get buried on the island. I do remember something about this.
Oh, look at that.
New York City in the late 1800s passed a law. By the way, until 1898, New York City consisted of just Manhattan. It wasn't until the year of consolidation that we had Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, and then eventually Staten Island. But New York City, until for most of our history, considered of just this island, New York, New York. So a law was passed forbidding the creation of any new cemeteries on this island. But guess what? There was plenty of room in the borough of Queens. So that's why there's a whole cemetery belt right in the middle of Queens. A huge number of cemeteries. It's endless. Anyway, so quite a number of noteworthy people and families have their last resting place at Trinity Cemetery, including about 30 members of the Astor family, including John Jacob Astor IV, who went down on the Titanic. Clement Clark Moore, who started the General Theological Seminary, which you can still find in Chelsea, and is the putative author of The Night Before Christmas, the famous poem. I still have readings along his gravesite. And curiously, one of the sons of Charles Dickens, Alfred Tennyson Dickens, last resting place, is in the cemetery. He was on a speaking tour about his father. He ended up dying in New York, so they buried him. And of course, John James Audubon, whose famed watercolor paintings of birds of America. The collection is held by the New York Historical Society. Audubon was born on the island of Hispaniola, today's Haiti and the Dominican Republic, back in 1780. And he ended up having an acreage in this neighborhood on land overlooking the river. So at one time, Upper Manhattan, this is the see if I have the photo here. Oh yes. So one time, this area you could still see the river there, but the house was just sort of like down, really, a couple of blocks down the hill. So this was the Audubon estate, which I think was torn down back in the 1930s before we had landmarking. It was abandoned in serious disrepair. So this was again John James Audubon's home for several decades. His wife and children outlived him. And then on the other side, I just have a picture of the further northern tip of Manhattan, which still had farms in the 20th century. Okay, so I'm just going to pass this around. That's right. It comes full circle. Anyway, we just have a couple of blocks to go. So we're about to just on our way to the end of our walk at 157th Street and Broadway. We're going to visit what was actually New York City's first cultural district, and at one time the largest museum complex in the United States. It's right here around the corner, along with a spectacular Audubon mural. So, so actually, if I think what we can do, we can walk and you can pass around the photo if you're careful. And when well, what it was, there are a whole number of villages. Where the Upper West Side is, that was the village of Bloomingdale. Where 125th Street, level with the river, that was Manhattanville. By the way, Manhattanville has been called Manhattanville since around the 1820s. It's only original. Well, actually, some people call part of the Upper West Side still Bloomingdale. The area west between Broadway and Riverside, between 96 and 110th Street. Well, it was all part of Manhattan. It's just that Manhattan was divided into villages at the time. So Carmenville was just sort of one village of Manhattan, like Bloomingdale. Carsonville, which is centered around the West 70s. muralism all over there. Cemetery just goes from 153rd to 162. It's 2 blocks long, divided into 2 sections. At one time there was a bridge connecting the 2 sections of Kennedy Cemetery. The church of the entrance to the section, again a branch of the Episcopal Church, is built in the mid first decade of the this is the linear part, 72nd to 168th. And actually, you also will see it down, and actually technically Columbus Circle, but the section maintained by the Broadway Mall Association, not-for-profit, is from 70th to 168th Street. I think the Lincoln Square Association maintains the malls from Columbus Circle to 70th Street. It's another local organization. You're part of that. This yeah, I'm a volunteer. Oh, sure, sorry. So to the Audubon estate is just down here. Well, we're not going.
Yesterday, calling a short minute, she came with a friend who lived in the city, and so she came by when we were in the park. Just to say hi.
I was like, wow, I've been walking down the street like, I've never been here. And then we look over and, oh, I've been here.
So just a couple of things. So this is a very unusual place. It's not ordinarily of the open. One of our great free museums and cultural institutions in New York City is tucked away here in this historic area known as Audubon Park or Audubon Terrace. These buildings are all from the first decade of the 20th century. The building on the left used to house the American Indian Museum, which is now located in Bowling Green in Lower Manhattan. And right next door under renovation is the Hispanic Society of America, which has the world's largest collection outside Spain of Spanish art, artifacts, manuscripts. There's an American railroad heir named Archer Huntington, who as a child became infatuated everything to do with Spain and Spanish and Latin culture. He was affluent enough to travel far and wide. He spent a lot of time in Spain, Portugal, Latin America, brought up all kinds of works of art, including works by Goya and Velázquez, painters, which you can find in the museum. So it was in need of a restoration renovation. So I think it's going to be still going on this summer. It will be hopefully be opening soon. So I did put it on your sheet so you can remember. The building on the right was originally the home of the American Geographic Society, which you can see the names of the famous explorers. The American Geographic Society sponsored a lot of early expeditions, including expeditions to the polar regions. And in at least in an obscure way, you can trace your roots to the United Nations in this building, because it was members of the American Geographic Society that gave birth to the forerunner of the United Nations, called the League of Nations. In fact, you'll see on the facade American Geographic Society. But for a number of decades, this has been a very important college. It's the largest bilingual college in the United States, offering classes in both English and Spanish, serving the large Spanish-speaking population of the area in New York City. Incidentally, people of Latin American background comprise the largest single ethnic group in New York City, making up about 28% of the population of New York. The number 2 group would be people of African descent, making up about a quarter of the population. We have a growing population of people from all over Asia that would be India, China, Korea, kind of inching up towards somewhere between 15 to 20% of the population. And by the way, of all the facts about New York that I can think of, probably the most interesting is this one. 4 in 10 New Yorkers today, we're just short of it, 39% of our 8.7 million residents actually born outside of the United States. So we started out as a city, in some sense, welcoming people from other countries and other lands, speaking other languages, and we have largely continued in that society, but we do a college. Yes, private. But, American Geographic.
He
wants to be in a picture. If I cannot be in a picture.
So again, between 64th Street and 157th Street, there are 6 of these sculptures that were just installed a few weeks ago, courtesy of the Broadway Mall Association and the artist Kathy Rettenberg. So, very interesting. So anyway, it's a few minutes past 4. So first of all, I want to say thank you for joining us to honor Jane Jacobs on our Jane's Walk in Hamilton Heights and Sugar Hill. Hope you had a nice time. Thank you. That's so nice of you. That's not expected, but very, very welcome. So again, if you did not get a handout, I deeply and humbly apologize. I'm happy to give you a business card. Email me. And